ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are back with yet another episode of my favorite series personally that I'm doing. I love doing this. It's Wham's World. What is up, guys? I hope you guys are doing well. I have the worst glare of all time on my glasses right now, so I'm not going to really take too much of your time. However, I'm going to look down and also look at the camera. I do just want to appreciate everybody's support for this series, however possible. Please make sure to like and subscribe and all that fun stuff. You guys can comment whatever you want, so long as it's not manifestos start blowing up government buildings. I really don't care. But I do hope that everybody's doing well and stuff, and as I said, I've been really enjoying doing this series, and I will continue doing it because it's almost therapeutic for me. I know I've said it a couple times. But let's hop in here, because we are gonna do this. I just kind of like playing Minecraft, and like I've said before, hey, I know that album. I've always said that like I am naturally quite philosophical with this kind of stuff, and I do believe in being honest with emotions and stuff like that. And I've been working on it in my personal life, and this is a good way to work on it a little bit better. I'm very proud of this content. Compared to everything else, I enjoy doing it and I'm proud of it. So we are back at our gorgeous home, you know, we are having a good time and stuff. Last episode was a little bit of a little bit more, say, lax. I didn't have much I wanted to talk about. I just kind of want to generally speak on stuff. And since then, the stuff that I did speak about has gotten a lot worse. You know, but who cares? Yeah. I sure do. I care very much because I do care about the world I live in. But today, I did want to talk about something a little bit more interesting, I guess. Definitely a lot more, it hits closer to home, probably for a lot of people. And it's about kind of making mistakes and building from them, you know. I don't have any talking points for today either, because to be honest, I've enjoyed it more when I kind of just ramble. And I hope that you guys do as well. But yeah, let's take a good night's rest, you know, and then we can get on with our lives in the morning. As I said, I hope everybody's doing well and stuff. For my looking into like my YouTube studio and stuff like that, this series doesn't get a lot of attention, but as I said, I'm going to keep on doing it because I believe in what this is, you know. And the big thing is that I want to be very honest and truthful and transparent about my emotions, and hopefully help other people do the same thing, because it's something that's seriously lacking in this world. Is little thing that I like to call empathy. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it or not, but empathy is a very sought after thing, and ironically, it most of the time never ends up actually kind of going the way that people want it to, you know. Also today, in terms of building, I was going to build a nice little patio out here, and kill this creeper as well. Oh, you know what, I kind of wanted that to happen anyway, so. But yeah, I'm going to build a little deck here as well. This is definitely going to be a little bit more of a building episode than the last ones. But yeah, I'm a human being, right? And making mistakes is being human in the most post-Superman Hope Corps kind of way. I really did love that movie. I thought it had a really great message and stuff. But yeah, being human means making mistakes. And I'd love to say here and kind of delve more deeper into that and like the philosophy behind it and all that. But to be straight up, you don't really need to delve that much further into it, because being quite honest, it's just kind of a thing that you have to understand. Because if you don't understand it, you end up doing a lot more harm to yourself than good. And naturally, you know, I've just made mistakes a lot of times just by being myself, you know. And at some points, you know, overextending myself. What else? I've overaccepted certain people in my life and took for granted what they've done for me. And I mean, I have made mistakes. And the only way that you could possibly get better is by just simply like doing what you need to do and moving forward. And in my personal opinion, it's a little bit more harsh of a thing, but it's not a mistake unless you learn from it. If you don't learn from it and you don't change, it just becomes what you are. And I'm a very, very, very firm believer in that people can make mistakes and still grow. And there truly is no end for everybody, you know. Sometimes, as always, it is better to... This is something that I've kind of learned in the last few years. As I've grown up, I've gotten out of high school, so to speak. But you have to cut people out of your life. And, well, really, I'm not going to say that, because this literally goes against something that I kind of went through a few months ago, you know. Where I had a very close friend who really pushed the last button with me, right? You don't need to cut people out. I've always kind of lived my life by the quote, the easy thing, or the hard thing, and the right thing are normally the same thing. Right? What does that mean? You know, that doing the right thing is hard, and it is taxing on you, and that's what makes it the right thing, you know. So if you were to say you have an infection, right, on your arm or whatever, and the infection's going to kill you, you know, that is quite a... I mean, it's a fact, you know. If you do not do something about this, you will die. Well, what do? You have to, unfortunately, cut the arm off, you know. But the thing is that you don't really lose the memory of that arm, right? And you don't necessarily you can't just easily go on without it, you know. So then that begs the question, what is the right thing? What is the wrong thing in that scenario? And I can sit here all the live long day and tell you guys about my experiences and how I feel about certain things. Well, unfortunately, I'm not right most of the time. And more than that, it is something that you must... It's a situation by situation thing, you know. That's what I've been looking for. Because obviously what is right for me might not be right for you. But what kind of gets us through this is authentically and humanly sharing our experiences and our feelings, which that is something that I learned very, very well in these past few months. That is... this is gonna be a lot more personal of an episode as well, because I have gone through things in my life, just like the rest of the world has, you know, and just like you or I have, you know, or just like you have. And you cannot think, even for a second, that the person that you are talking to maybe lying or maybe untruthful. Because the thing with that is people don't lie about things like getting hurt by your parents, right? Or even struggles of suicide and things like that. People don't lie about those things. People lie about being okay and separate from those things. That is way more common than one or the other may believe, and certain people do not have the capacity to deal with things like that and to get on with that, right? You cannot judge people based on things like that, and this is, I'm not saying I'm infinitely qualified to speak on certain things, right? But I have dealt with things in my life that have affected me as a person and changed me as a person. So I will delve into that a little bit because, again, I believe that these things did make me who I am. And as much as I would say that they hurt me, that obviously I struggled with these things, it does not matter one bit because it makes me who I am. I am who I am because of these certain things, So again, I'm going to go into these things. I unfortunately was pink slipped in a hospital once. This happened because my parents for a time believed that I was doing drugs. And to cut the story short, I had been, but never during these times when they had accused me of this was I high. In this question, they thought I was doing marijuana. And this eventually kind of came to a head on my 20th birthday when I had left a relative's house early. And I had given a friend my family's address because my dad had me come with him to have a late Christmas dinner. We normally went to Christmas with them, but unfortunately we couldn't, or they couldn't host that year, so everybody kind of did theirs separately. We did theirs the day before my birthday. Well, a few months before that, we had planned a birthday party for myself at my friend's house, and I had let them know about this, and they told me that it was okay. And the day of, I unfortunately was yelled at for kind of being disrespectful and not really doing things for my family, right? When this happened, my father was very upset that I gave my family my friend my family's address, because I wasn't really around them that well, and my father holds a lot of respect for them, as do I. So that really brought things to a head, and in addition to that, my father thought that I was high the night before. So again, this was the night before my birthday. I spent the night at that friend's house. I had a wonderful time, and my friends made me actually a Juggernog themed cake from Call of Duty Zombies. I'm a massive fan of COD Zombies. And yeah, so I had a really wonderful time, and then I went the next day, and I came back, and my dad sat me down and said, "I'm going to drug test you." And I was I hadn't done anything in weeks by that point. I had even like rejected offers because I wanted to, I had been getting told multiple times by, I know you're high and stuff, and I wasn't. Never once was I. And so I told my dad, a little bit harshly, I suppose, but I had just told him, yeah, go ahead, do it, because I have nothing to hide, And I took the drug test, and we'd kind of been sitting around, and my dad told me, you're going to sit here in front of me, not when I was taking the drug test, but that I would sit there in front of him, until the results came out. And unfortunately, the results came out positive. As I said, I can't express it enough. I wasn't on drugs or anything. I'd been around people that were doing drugs, and to be honest, I was around them quite a bit. But I've never really been too into drugs, to be honest. I much prefer drinking, even though that's more calories and all that. And honestly, I think marijuana probably is better for you in the long run. If you use it efficiently and without, ruining your life, I guess, and letting it take you over. But yeah, the test came out positive, and in my opinion, in this scenario, I was completely justified to flip the hell out, because naturally, when people are wrong about something, or at least in this scenario I wasn't wrong, but when you think you're right and you are proven wrong, it's never very light. But especially when you know that you were right, that is a huge thing to think about. Oh boy, it's raining, so let's go in the house, have a little chat, I guess. But yeah, so when this kind of happened, I lost my shit, and I say that because it's exactly what happened. Obviously my dad was like, yeah, I knew it, he was very, at this point, proud of himself. And I, on the other hand, was absolutely losing my shit because I knew I wasn't high. Again, even right now, I have nothing to hide. At that day, even in the month around that, I was not high. So I'm kind of talking, and my dad said, hey, I'll give you another drug test. And I told him, what's the point? Because it's kind of came back out. And at this point, I started getting quite angry with my parents because, again, they didn't trust me at this time. And screw this. I'm going face cam mode. Wow, nice red lighting. I look like I'm gonna die. I need to get a better camera. I have a GoPro. I should set that up. I didn't even think about that. Okay, but I'm sorry. Back to this. Told my dad, what's the point of it? Because I had already tested when I should have been negative, when it became positive. So things started to ramp up. I ended up taking off a door. And I say taking off, more like Hulk kind of ripping that door off. Give me 1 second, sorry. very strange time for an interruption. I apologize about the interruption. My roommate's hanging some stuff and he wanted my opinion. Yeah, we should be good. Anyways, yes. That really was a horrible time for an interruption. But yeah, I'm gonna be talking kind of like this, so that I can avoid the glare, especially while I'm full screen. As I said, I ended up taking off this closet door with my bare hands and ripping it from where it was. And at this point, my dad and I had been really going at it. And eventually it got to the point when I was cornered in my kitchen. And I couldn't take it anymore. There's a point, when it doesn't become clear. I think that's a very huge misconception, and this goes back to something that I might talk about in a little bit. But there is no point of clarity in these kind of situations. I think that it happens maybe to some people, but I think largely that there is no way to really say that like oh, it became clear that this is what I needed to do. What it is in this scenario and in other scenarios in my life, for me personally at least, has been that the voices. I sound like a schizo. I sound like a schizo. It's the people in your life that you can kind of hear in your head. Their opinions, or at least your perception of their opinions, gets so loud and they interfere so much with each other that you want anything to get them to stop. I'm sorry that took me so long to get out, because I knew it in my head. It's just kind of hard to put it to words. This is a very tough situation. And as I said, I was cornered in my kitchen, and things just became so overbearing for me that I could not take it anymore. So I went to my kitchen drawer and I pulled out a steak knife, and I right here on my arm here. You definitely can't see this, but right here, there's a marking where I cut myself, and there are 2 others that have since healed. And because of this, my family has dealt with certain things like this before. We're all a little bit mentally ill in one way or another. And I cut myself, to be straight up. Kind of was bleeding on the floor. At this time, we had just got a new dog for Christmas, and this happened 2 weeks after Christmas on my birthday. And my family instinctively and at this point, to be honest, correctly called an ambulance for me. I was an adult at this point, so they loaded me to an ambulance and took me to the emergency room. I hope that's not too loud in post. I feel like I might be able to do a little bit of audio work with that. But yeah, that's how that went. So I went to the ER, and again, I was an adult at this point. To be quite frank, I was just happy that I got out of the house. Kind of at this point, it's kind of like being on a hot day and then just dropping into the water. You feel so much better, but not like truly, like obviously the sun's still beating down on you, and metaphorically, but Yep, I went to the ER, and they did a thing called pink slipping. Pink slipping generally is when you relinquish care of yourself. It essentially becomes the hospital dictates what you want. I did this to stay away from my family at the time. And I went into a psychiatric ward for 3 days. I can't go delve into it too much about what I experienced there. To be quite frank, I did not experience much. In terms of there was group therapy and stuff, I did not go to that stuff. It was offered to me, and they actually did tell me to do it. But I had brought with me into the ER a copy of Killers of the Flower Moon and a autobiography by a man named Jan Winter. He was the original editor of Rolling Stone magazine and the founder, technically, of it. So that was that. And again, not delving too much into it, more into I can't go into specifics because I believe that violates HIPAA. The only reason I know about this is because a couple of my friends are nurses. But I eventually got out, and it wasn't, don't believe for a second that it was the most particularly easy time. They didn't pamper me. I was drugged up a little bit during the time. And honestly, a little bit like how I am right now, I suppose. I feel right now that I'm a bit more mellow. And I feel like this definitely will sound a little bit different than other episodes. But, yes. That is what happened to me. And since then, I will say I've done a lot better. For myself, I had something personal happen to me a couple months ago. That was somewhat related to that. Because, to be quite honest, this happened in early January of 2024. And this personal thing that I was just talking about happened in June of 2025. And the way I've kind of looked at it is that, not looked at it, it's the way it is. I am quite an emotionally clear person. When I'm not limited by things like YouTube trying to tell me that talking about this stuff is bad. I sometimes can be not silenced at all, but a little bit more wary of talking about certain things. But 99.9999% of the time, I'm quite an emotionally clear person, and I'm able to vent my emotions properly and be transparent the way I believe that people should. But yeah, as I said, this stuff happened, and I had kind of realized that for the last year and a half of my life, I had been extremely, how do I put this? Concerned with others. And I don't know why, because I turn on the camera and I kind of feel a little bit, I suppose, pressure, right? But I don't know what I'm really trying to say right there. I had something and I kind of lost it. What I'm going to do is do this. This will make this a lot better for myself. And as I was talking about, in June of this year, I'd realized that since I had gotten out of the hospital, I'd been totally concerned with others. What kept me going in that hospital, and the reason I came out as well as I did and clear as I did, was because as I said, the night before I went into the hospital, I had been with friends. And it was a wonderful time. As I said, my friends baked me a cake, and we celebrated myself. Well, when this kind of happened, that's all I could think about. And actually, when I had first gotten into the hospital, I had mentioned to the EMTs that had taken me to the hospital. I was like, hey, I have a friend, he's an EMT as well. And that friend actually ended up coming to visit me in the hospital. Right before I went into the psychiatric ward. Which was a little bit embarrassing because, ironically, the day beforehand, I had seen this guy. And we were kind of chit-chatting and stuff, and we had a good time. So within one day, I went from me seeming perfectly fine to this guy seeing me hospital gown, essentially right before I crossed the gates into, again, relinquishing care of myself, to the hospital. So again, going back to this, how I've kind of been trying to do better in the last couple months, because it was such a shock to me that the decisions I was making and the things I was doing was entirely to service other people, and I was tiring myself, and I was avoiding other things in my life and avoiding my personal life, to be honest, quite frankly, entirely for my social life. That is a difficult thing to not achieve, but to achieve realizing, in my opinion. It takes a certain kind of mind to see that. And I truly did have to take a step back and be myself again for a little bit, and to care for myself and to do things for myself, which is not good going into your 21st year on this earth, to not do that, to not be that way. Yeah. Going back to what we were talking about earlier, is about making mistakes. And doing what you can to rectify them. So, looking into this situation, mistakes I made. Flat out, again, as I said it earlier, I lost my shit. And we're gonna go back to the Minecraft thing a little bit. Let me get us back in right there. But yeah, I think after I got through that story, because I don't know if you guys can tell, it's kind of hard for me to talk about things like that. Not only that, but it should be hard for me to talk about that kind of stuff, because I think if you went through what I did, and obviously I didn't tell you guys everything, but the certain events that, did happen, it'd be a little bit hard for you to do that kind of stuff as well. And to, talk about that kind of stuff. And a good portion of you should recognize that it is good that it is hard to talk about that kind of stuff. It's like, if that kind of stuff didn't affect me, then I think I would have lost even more than I did in this last year and a half. And to give you an example of what I was talking about, there was a point when, on the same weekend, I had been leaving school for a little bit, because finals were over, and I wanted to kind of enjoy that break. Right. Well, my grandpa had wanted to go down to West Virginia with me and shoot guns. My family has a little plot of land down there. We've been talking about doing it for a while. Now, again, like I said, I had some friends who wanted me to go visit them at college, and I ended up just telling my grandfather outright that I didn't want to go. Not solely because of that, but because of the fact that it was raining, and I don't know if you guys have ever been shooting when it's raining and being outside and hiking when it's raining. It's not a very fun time. But I'd kind of beat myself up about this for a little bit because, and especially after June, because of the fact that like I was still willing to even like think about sidetracking my grandpa like that, it's a pretty sad thing, and I will freely admit it's the wrong choice, and I love my grandfather to death, and I've been trying to make amends in these last couple of years. Not make amends, but trying to be with my grandparents, because I know that they are going to pass away soon. My grandma was diagnosed with colon cancer a few years back, and it really put into perspective life and how fleeting that kind of time is. I have not really had many family deaths in my life that I've experienced, and my grandparents mean the world to me, for the amount of sacrifices they've made for myself and my brother and my entire family, and I know there's a chest of flowers. I'm gonna go grab those from a village over here. Well, as I said, this was a mistake, and I did end up going to see my friends over going with my grandfather, and not even saying that it was a mistake, because I have learned from it since then, and I very easily, I found it a lot easier to say F you to my, not F you to my friends, but to recognize that it's more important to be with my family than with my friends since then. And yeah, it was understanding, that like I made the wrong choice, in that. And I don't particularly believe in God. I believe that there is some higher power out there that is pulling the strings, because I think it would be so insane not to think that, that no God exists, and that this is gonna hurt me. Oh, it's because I have a flower. I'm an idiot. But yeah, as I was saying earlier, before I was rudely sidetracked by this bee, that, like, knowing the difference between the fact that I even did a bad thing versus I thought a bad thing versus I made a mistake, right? It's all different things. And I believe I might have said this earlier, but it's not a mistake unless you learn from it, that if it's not in that way, right, then it's just something that's wrong, So, it's a challenging thing to wrestle with. And that's what life is. Life is wrestling with a proverbial bear, that you are having to hurt yourself and heal yourself constantly over and over again until life, becomes it's almost just it is a cycle. It's a cycle of hurting yourself and getting better and learning from it. There's that one saying, I forget, I think it's in the Bible, like the courage to understand when I'm wrong and the conviction to admit, or the conviction to understand when I'm wrong and the courage to admit that I'm wrong, So again, I'm talking about these things now through a YouTube video of all things, right? And this is tough for me. I know it definitely was outwardly tough. As I was talking about that story earlier. But right now I seem a little bit more clear-headed about stuff like that. Well, because it's easier to talk about stuff like that. And the courage to understand the conviction to understand that there's a difference is a big thing between things that have happened to you. Because you can't be dramatic in life, right? You cannot simply go, like, oh my god, this happened to me, this is the worst thing ever. There are levels to things. There are things that are not as bad as other things. So for example, I'm quite a privileged person. I didn't grow up to money or anything like that, but I grew up in a family that cared and that put value into things like food and eating better food than, just like meatloaf every day, That when we got together as a family, it was a big event, and it was filled with love and laughter, which is more than some other people can say. I will freely recognize that. However, there were things that should not have happened when I grew up. I've kind of had this conversation with my mom. My mom gave birth to my brother when she was 20, going on 21. And I had told her a couple of years ago, like, what's funny is that I am now the same age as you were when you had kids. And I am deeply terrified of having kids at this time in my life. Because of that, Or not because of that, but because I understand that I am completely in the wrong spot to bring a human into this life and to care for it. And, we've talked about this a little bit more. But I know that my parents weren't in the right spot to have us. That is a big thing that has happened with me and my brother, because she had my brother when she was 20, and she had me when I was 25. Or she had me when she was 25, right? And again, is it a mistake? No. Was it? It's not, because, to be quite honest, not to toot my own horn, but I am a good person. I know the difference between right and wrong. Even if I make the wrong choice, I know when it is right and when it is wrong. And will I admit it every time? Maybe not. But a majority of the time, I will admit when I'm wrong. And even just recently, this happened because I lied about something that I shouldn't have. And the reason why I lied about this stuff was because of the fact that it had benefited my friends greatly. And this is what I was talking about earlier, with that I had been so concerned with others, is that I would have told the truth, and I would have done what I needed to do. But what set me back, even though I knew what I did was wrong, and I let myself suffer for it every day, but it benefited them, and it made them happy, and what they perceived as the truth and what was a lie, was the thing that was, like, made them very, very happy. But it makes them infinitely happier knowing the truth now. And they're not to be quite like, I don't not have friends because of this, and I'm not like alone and all that. No, I see my friends all the time still. I just went to Vegas with some of them recently. You know, I had a really great time. But I know that I was wrong, and even now I will freely admit that I was wrong. You know, so where does it kind of come into this stuff at? You need to look out for yourself. And as I have gone through life, and I have learned a little bit more about myself, more often than not in awful times and awful places, right? I have put myself through the ringer. I've hurt myself, knowingly and unknowingly. But I have become better through it all. And I don't consider any of this a mistake any longer. Get away from me. Like I said, I don't consider any of that a mistake. Anything that I've done a mistake, because I have learned from it. There's not a single thing that I haven't learned from in my life. And there's not a single thing that I regret doing because of that. Because although I did make the wrong decision in more places than I'd care to admit, I have become better through it, you know, and I have learned from it, which is more than some others can say. And if I didn't learn from it, then to be quite honest, I wouldn't be here today. This is something that kind of pisses me off about the world today. This is about as boomer as I'll really ever get. And I apologize if you don't believe in what I'm saying here, or you believe that I'm coming about in a way that I shouldn't. But you know what? I am me, you are you. I understand how you could feel that way. However, I think it benefits everybody greatly. That's what I'm about to say. And it's the word. My roommate's hammering in some stuff right now. I'll let him go for a little bit. I think we're okay. I saw these flowers and I wanted to pick these. Maybe not. What is he hammering in? He's just hanging stuff. But okay. I'm going to talk about suicide. And I believe in saying that word, because I believe that word has weight. And it is not about not saying the word. It is about knowing the weight of the word. Because to be quite honest, I have almost committed suicide in a few occasions in my life. And to be quite honest, in a couple of these times, and it has been more than a couple. It has been a few, and it has, I'm going to say it this way, I can't count it on one hand, right? And I have had a painful time in my life. I have done things that are wrong, but coming back from those moments is not one of the things that I have done wrong. And I would fight to the end for that. A lot of people nowadays, they'll say like, oh, I unalived myself. In my humble opinion, right, you can believe that I'm wrong. It reduces the meaning of that. Because I can say, you know, I almost committed suicide, right? But if I'm just saying I almost unalived myself to please certain people, well, you know what, man? Like, you might be triggered by that, but in my opinion, you should be triggered by things like that. I'm not saying like oh certain minorities are weaker than others or whatever people might think, or say in comment sections or whatever. Please speak your mind in my comment section, because I do wholeheartedly believe in speaking your mind. That's why I'm here right now and being transparent about it. But again, it reduces the meaning, because you can say I almost unalived myself. But you know what's crazy is that I could say that right now, that I almost unalived myself. But you know what? I just as easily as flipping those two words could not be here doing this today. That is a difficult thing to understand. And I think there are certain people that believe that they are depressed, believe that they are going through things, but they aren't going through things as difficult as other people might. That other people might genuinely be going through hardship and unable to come back from that, sorry, I gotta lock in real quick and place some of these flowers here. Alright, and then let's get some pink in here. Man, I really, truly did interrupt myself here. Alright. But yeah, that's not the subject I feel so sorry. That's a subject that I feel extremely strongly about. And as I said, I just as easily could not be here talking to you today. And there is weight to that. There is a solid mass of that, that you need to take into account, So I hope that me saying this might encourage some people who might not understand the depth of what they're saying, and consider it a little heavier the next time they kind of think about this stuff. And do a little flower patch right here. But yeah. And again, this stuff, I've been struggling with this for all my life. It is unfortunate. I didn't ask for this, but it is a part that I must play. And again, I will say that again, I did not ask for the things that have hurt me, that have damn near ruined me at some points, All I have done is my best. And I'm very proud of that. So, going back along with that, I do believe in being honest about things like these. There are different reasons why that I have done things that I have done. There are different reasons why I have thought about committing suicide. Are any of them good? Maybe some of them not. Some of them I was justified. But all of them I have come back from. And I am valid for feeling the way that I do. And yeah. The world is a very cruel and unjust place. But to take away meanings from words and actions, and to limit the impact of that stuff, is something that I think this world needs to kind of get a grip on. Because saying things like that, or reducing the impact of saying things like suicide. Anything that you can think of that is abbreviated and stuff like that should be said, because it reduces the impact. And a big one that I'll also bring up is there was a period in gaming when they stopped using swastikas in media, when swastikas, the official symbol of the Nazi Party, was not sorry, give me a second. Yeah, go ahead, man. Yes, go ahead, man. Actually, they just said the wrong thing, you know. But yeah. Yeah, sorry, as I was talking about, there was a point when people stopped using swastikas. And I was extremely happy when the Indiana Jones 5 movie came out, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, because it brought back swastikas. Because nobody's denying that what the Nazis did was bad. And also the other thing, the Holocaust did happen. I think you're not dumb, but to be honest, yes, I'm going to be blunt on it. It is ignorant to think that stuff did not happen when there is multiple images of it that were proven correctly, and that the fact that it is such a huge thing that happened on such a wide scale, you know. But yeah, it's the fact that people are trying to erase that from history and is saying like, saying that you're a Nazi is bad. No, if you're acting like a fucking Nazi, you're acting like a fucking Nazi. It's not anything different than that, you know. It's not much more. It's not trying to trigger people. No, it's trying to be blunt fucking honest, and you should be blunt fucking honest if you're gonna tell somebody you are acting like a fucking Nazi. Should people understand better when that word and how it's used? Yes, I do believe so. And I believe it's much easier to just erase it than to learn it, right? And I think if we stop teaching things like that in schools, how are we gonna learn from it? You know, and again, it's not a mistake unless you learn from it. Have we fucking learned from things like that? No, we fucking haven't, you know. Somewhat we have, you know, but is it away from us? Does it not happen? It does happen. And this is why things like journalism have gone downhill, because people are so afraid to speak the truth and to utilize the power of things like the internet and how free phones are now. When it used to be you had to bring a lens for a camera and then get those photos developed. So there was such a huge chance that those photos don't make it. When I can walk outside and get a better looking quality shot with a $200 phone, you know. I do really like this flower patch. I'm gonna go to bed too. You know, it is so important to say things like that, and again, to know when to say it. All right, I don't go out calling people Nazis, right? I don't throw it around willy-nilly, but I'm sorry, but if you're acting like one, I'm gonna call you one, right? Right? Does this mean that it's true? A little bit, yes, it does. You know, I'm sorry, but it, you know, it's unfortunate that so many people are unable to learn from shit like this. You know, it's so difficult, you know, to get through to some people and to three more chickens. You know, and obviously today it's a more politically charged time, and it is a time where I think being informed is such a important part of our society. Because again, a lot of people throw around fascism, Nazism, all that stuff, and not every time do they specifically know what they're talking about. Now, again, this is not me saying that there's not things like that happening, particularly in America. It is quite a difficult thing. But you know what? I'm sorry. Day by day we do go more towards a fascist thing. In a fascist place that we live in, you know. Well, God, it's just... It's so sad to me that people will not accept the fact that they have made a mistake. And to be honest, in my opinion, there's nothing that makes me more upset than hearing somebody talk about how they didn't make a mistake and they fight to the death when they can't just think about it for longer than 2 seconds and understand the other person's point of view. You know, because admitting that you made a mistake doesn't always have to mean that you have to face up to it, own up to it. But what it means is that you have to do better, you know. And it's not like so, you know. It's something that pisses me off. And I've been working in my life towards being against people that are like that and not just accepting that. And yeah. God, it's so... The world we live in is hard. It's the modern day world. But, I mean, can we just make it a little bit less hard, you know? And to have empathy towards people that might know a little bit more than you. And to accept the fact that you might not know everything. And to go forth with the conviction to admit that you might be wrong. Again, admitting that you were wrong. Sometimes in arguments, this goes back to the last episode I did, or 2 episodes ago, when we were talking about fighting and how to stop fighting and kind of get through arguments, right? It's... You don't always have to be wrong. You know, you don't always have to be told that you're right to know that you are right, you know. But, I mean, there's nothing wrong with having, like, the human condition and humanity first and other people first, unless you're ruining yourself doing it. And that is something that has been happening day in, day out, all the time nowadays, you know. You know, I just hope that we can move forward from certain things, you know. And try to do better. You know, because it's such a hard time, you know, for so many people. And the fact that there are people dying every day in Gaza, and in Ukraine, you know. Rolling Stone did a wonderful article about how there are kids that are, instead of going to school, they're learning how to make pipe bombs to fight against the Russians. And the fact that certain countries, and namely America, can't get their shit together and fix themselves so that they can fix other people. And I'm sorry, but the immigration policies are just fucking wrong. Because we should not have a country where people are afraid to come to it. We should have a country that people want to come to it, the same way that my grandma did. My grandma emigrated from Greece in the 50s, you know, in search of a better life in the steel towns that I found myself living in, you know, when I was born. We should strive to have a country where people want to come to it, to fill these jobs, you know, and to make the world a better place too. We don't fucking have that, because it's so easy to just say that these people are wrong, and they're not. They're not wrong for wanting a better life. You know, they're not wrong for coming here and trying to work for a living, you know. They're wrong for committing crimes, but you know what? If you truly want, you don't fight the people that are committing the crime. Fight the crime itself, you know. Because we're never not gonna have murder, you know. And we're never not gonna have, you know, people that are, you know, selling drugs and all that. And to be quite honest, I mean, our government sold drugs, you know. Our government did those things. You know, and they put crack into underdeveloped neighborhoods in the 80s, you know, and they did stuff like that. But outlawing this stuff and making people not want to come to this country and raising the price to get into national parks if you're not a citizen of America. I mean, that is not the way to go. You shouldn't have the people that want to come to our country to see the beauty, to feel the air, you know. And it is just so difficult to do this stuff, you know, and to live in this world. And I hope that soon we can find our way back onto the good path. And there's nothing wrong with being on the wrong path, but there is only something wrong with not seeing that there is a better path, and not admitting that there is a better path, and going through the brush and the swamps in order to, just because of pride, you know. You know, in America, I don't think there's a lot of reasons why we should have pride much anymore, you know. We didn't, at one time, cultivate a great and wonderful economy in a world, and the world looked to us, and now they sneer at us. You know, and it's so difficult to see these kinds of things. I can't speak too much more on the topic without repeating myself. But I want to see a country, again, where people want to come to it, you know, and to see wonder in the same way that, like, Disney World, you know, and stuff like that. It is so sad that we don't have that anymore, that we've lost the way, and all we can do. And this is what America was founded on. That it is not about freedom of speech. It is not about pride and things like that. It's not about fighting against each other, and it's not about persecuting one another. It is about helping one another back to the right path. It is that. Sorry, that is what our country was founded upon. And again, I'll quote national treasure, right? That the best thing about the Constitution is that it is built in that our country can make mistakes, and we don't allow ourselves to make mistakes ever, you know? That when somebody makes a mistake, it is wrong. And some mistakes are wrong, some mistakes are unforgivable. That's what makes us human, you know, is that difference in the way we work, you know. That's why that is why we fight, because there are different opinions on things, you know. It is so difficult to see people completely miss that point in who we are as a country, that we are people who were founded upon not the ideas, but the mistakes of other countries, and we try to learn from it. And today that does not happen anymore. It does happen, but it happens scarcely, and it happens not as nearly as much as it should have. Guys, you know, be yourself, and but you should know that yourself is just as much what other people have made you as what you've made yourself. But striking a balance between those two things is incredibly important. That knowing the difference between when you are making a decision for yourself And when you are making a decision based on the thoughts of other people, that is what makes us human. And all we can do is just try better, you know? And I hope that soon we will come to a spot. And unfortunately, in my personal opinion, I think that it won't come lightly. And it will be with force. That people realize that they are making the wrong choices and they are fighting the wrong things. You know, and that it's not about the fact that people are coming here and taking our jobs. It is about the fact that people want to come here because their countries are worse, and we're slowly becoming that. We're slowly becoming a dictatorship, and we are becoming a dictatorship. I'm tired of kind of speaking, trying not to offend anybody. It will offend some people, and there's no fucking problem with that at all. But there are people who believe that we are being fought against, and to understand the difference between somebody fighting against you and somebody trying to fight for you is such a huge fucking thing that seemingly so little people understand, you know? All we can do is do better. That's all you can do. And it's just as simple as that to like hear to see bad things and to feel bad things, you know, but understand that they are bad and to fix them nonetheless. That is what it is like to be human. To make the mistake. And then how did you get in here? Oh, it's because of the... Right. You know, my dad always wasn't a person who would admit that he made mistakes. And more recently, as he's gotten older, again, my parents had me when they were young. They didn't know everything. They couldn't feel everything. They couldn't go along with the same strides that other parents were. But they did their hardest. And as much as at the time they probably felt that they were making mistakes, they made 3 wonderful children, and they've helped people that are lower than themselves, and they've instilled in me those values, and that's why I'm here today and trying to talk about these things and be authentic about these things, because I believe in this stuff. And simply because knowing that my parents, they never admit when they feel that they are wrong. It takes them years to admit that they feel that they are wrong because they don't feel comfortable with being wrong. But you know what? I've seen that in my life, and I've seen it break them, and I've seen it hurt them. And I believe in a world where we can teach people not to do that, you know. And to when they feel that they are being wronged, and when they feel that they are hurt, that they can learn from that and to be different, you know. That is the essence of being human. That is it. Sorry, I gotta take a second after that, you know. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I do feel pretty powerful about stuff like this, you know. And as I've said, you know, I've seen it break people, and I've seen it hurt people, and not just me. I've seen it hurt other people that at times didn't deserve it. And I know that the things that my parents did, I will never dream of. I will never consider even doing as a parent. The things that I felt that they were wrong, but they did teach me right from wrong in a lot of places. And all I could ever wish for is to learn from these mistakes, you know. And I know I've become more and more vocal in past years with them about their shortcomings as parents, but I don't do it out of spite. I don't do it because I don't do it because like I want to see them get put down, because I want to see them succeed. And with my little brother growing up, who is 8 years younger than me, and we are in completely different age groups, but we are very vastly different as kids and stuff with them, and we got different styles of parenting with them. I've brought these things up to them so that way they can help my little brother not feel the things that I did. And as much as I've felt that my parents have not done everything right, I do know that they have learned from these things, and that there is value in learning from things like this. And that's all we can do. That is like all we can do is to learn and not hurt so much over things, and feel better about doing the right thing, and doing the right thing for yourself, not for others. All the time, at least, there's ways where you can do that, but it's all about balance. It's all about striking that balance. I think this will be a good point to end this episode here, because this is going to be a multiple part episode in a topic, that I do wish to cover broadly in other episodes, but I need that, I think, will define what this series is going forward in this world. And I wish all of you nothing but the best, and thank you so much for your support. Please use the comment section. Be kind to one another. Or you don't even have to be kind, but be empathetic towards others and other people's upbringings, and the fact that other people might not know as much as you, but that does not matter. Anybody who's been watching this, please consider liking and subscribing. It just lets me know that people understand this content and want to feel that people understand this content, and that they not agree with me, but feel that this is something worth telling. I'm going to keep on doing this because this serves me as a person. And I hope that it serves any one of you, and I hope that I'm able to help you, or see you feel differently, or maybe even just help you consider another side to an argument. But that is all. Have a wonderful one, guys. Stay safe and be kind to each other. And always strive to be a better person, but always be able to look back and see how far you've come. Because the past doesn't matter as what's to come. It doesn't matter as much as what's to come, but it is most certainly as valuable as what is to come. And I'd like to leave you with that. Everyone have a good one. I will see you next week.